I think a good analogy for mixed reality is like being a superhero. This is a technology that lets me do things that were impossible. And I think that's kind of the definition of a superhero. If you can do impossible things, it's giving me superpowers. And I think that's a great analogy.
What's up? Welcome to Same But Tech, a podcast where we explain the most talked about tech buzzwords, one analogy at a time. I'm Mohan, and today is all about reality. We're talking about virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, and even extended reality. Okay, reality check. Is this your reality? I mean, right now. Is all of this around you, the sights and the sounds and the feelings, is this your actual, real reality? What about that voice you keep hearing? Nah, I'm just kidding. That's me. But for real, what even is a real reality? To me, I define reality as what I'm present in, what I see, hear, smell, taste, and touch at any given moment. But what happens when those things are altered? See, we've been integrating technology into our reality for decades. We wear glasses, which make things look differently. We use air conditioning, which changes the weather. And lately, this is all becoming even more interesting. Think about it. What happens when I walk around New York City, the best and most real city in the world, with AirPods on, or with Siri at my fingertips? What happens when I look at the world through my iPhone camera, or with an Instagram filter? Is that all still reality? It's definitely different than reality once was. It's now enhanced or altered by technology. Lately, tech has become so common in our reality that we're actually leveraging it to create what seems like an entirely new reality or realities. You've probably heard of some of these terms: virtual reality, also known as VR, augmented reality, or AR, mixed reality, or MR. All of these fall under this broader term, XR, or extended reality. In this episode of Same, we explore how technology is bending our perception of what's really real.
Hi, I'm Greg Sullivan. I'm a director of mixed reality at Microsoft, and I get the good fortune of working with the team that built HoloLens.
And can you explain what HoloLens is?
We call it a mixed reality headset. HoloLens is a head-mounted computer that is completely wireless, untethered, and it brings holograms or three-dimensional digital objects into your real world and lets you interact with them as if they were real.
That sounds pretty fancy. To synthesize what Greg is saying, he works on this product at Microsoft called HoloLens. It's essentially a super intelligent goggle that you wear on your face. HoloLens lets you see the world in front of you, but it also lets you see holograms at the same time. Ones that you can actually interact with. Sounds cool, but what's really the point of that technology? Well, one use case for something like HoloLens could be a surgeon in an operating room.
All doctors to the ER.
HoloLens would enable the surgeon to see an X-ray or an MRI while having her hands completely free to operate. Now, there are a lot of other ways we can leverage this tech. But first, let's try to break it down with an analogy.
The analog that I keep coming back to with respect to mixed reality is really having a superpower or having superpowers. The ideas that we're playing with here are the notion of perception. How do we give machines the ability to perceive our world? And so I think one of the analogies that we can come up with is this is like having superpowers over space and time. And I'll give you some examples of what I mean by that is with mixed reality, you can see the digital world and the physical world together, unified in a meaningful way, combined in a way that gives you new insights and abilities that are different than interacting with those two universes independently.
That's kind of crazy. Did you guys catch that?
Folks know that computers have done amazing things for us over the last several decades. We can send messages across the globe instantly. We can shop online and do all the cool stuff that we can do. But to have those experiences, we sit in front of a rectangular piece of glass. It's our computer screen or our phone or a TV. And we interact with the digital world through that two-dimensional rectangle. The idea here is that what if you could take that digital world out of that flat piece of glass and make it exist in your three-dimensional world with everything else?
Think of mixed reality like having all those digital images and videos and video games all sort of floating outside of your TV or your computer screen into the real world. Ooh. Before we go too deep, let's take a couple steps back. We mentioned a few more realities before. All those are words: VR, AR, MR. A good way to understand all of these is to think of reality as a continuum. On one end, you have the physical world around you, and on the other end, a completely virtual reality. The in-between is where mixed and augmented reality live.
It's instructive to think of them as kind of two ends of a continuum. At one end is the fully physical world, where everything is real. There's no digital technology. Everything is made of atoms. There are predictable laws of nature, like gravity always pulls you toward the center of the earth. And that's the world that we know and love. The interesting thing that is emerging now is the notion of what happens when you combine those universes to some degree. If you continue along that spectrum from the physical more towards the digital, you can get more and more of the digital world into your view. You have digital things, digital people, and digital environments, until ultimately, if you slide all the way down to the virtual end of that continuum, the fully digital, everything is made of bits and not atoms. You're experiencing an environment that is entirely digital. That's a virtual reality.
Okay, let's take a trip down that reality continuum. First, let's travel to the far side of the continuum, which is VR, which stands for virtual reality. VR might be the most familiar of these terms. It's come in and out of style a few times over the past few decades. The best way to picture VR is those crazy screens that people strap to their faces. If you've ever seen Facebook's Oculus, Sony's PlayStation VR, or HTC Vive, those are all VR headsets. Go ahead, Google VR headsets, and you'll see what I mean. I'm for real, go for it. We'll wait.
So virtual reality is just a presentation of a universe in which people, places, and things in it are digital and not real. They're imaginary.
To some extent, virtual reality isn't too dissimilar to a computer or like an Xbox game. But those things exist on your laptop or on your TV screen. Virtual reality actually immerses you into the video game world.
If I'm sitting and watching a TV show, I can be immersed in a big screen TV and feel like I'm really there. But as I move around the room, my perspective with respect to that experience changes. I understand at a deep level that I'm watching something on TV. I'm not actually in it.
This sounds kind of silly, but imagine stepping into your TV while you're playing a video game. That's what virtual reality is trying to accomplish. A fully immersive experience in a new computer reality. These VR headsets even have tracking systems, so you can physically look and move around in this virtual world. Basically, it's like The Matrix, but not the sequels. The first one.
I know Kung Fu.
All right, we sorted out VR. Now, let's keep cruising down the reality continuum a little bit further. Let's move on to augmented reality, which is also known as AR. The boundaries slip a little in AR as the digital world blends more seamlessly with the world you guys thought you knew. But what does that mean? What on earth is augmented reality?
It's kind of what it sounds like, right? You're just taking reality and you're sprinkling some digital bits onto it. You're making it a little bit better. You're augmenting it somehow. And the primary thing here is that on a device that is characterized as an AR device, the primary characteristic of that vis-a-vis VR devices is that the AR device has a see-through lens.
An example might help us understand this better. Have you ever used Snapchat or Instagram to add puppy dog ears to your face or turn your tongue into a rainbow? Well, my condolences, but that's AR. Basically, anything that imposes computer-generated objects into the real world counts as augmented reality.
You still have a sense of the actual physical space you're in. So this is simple AR, like, playing Pokemon Go on your phone, or even something more immersive and three-dimensional, like wearing HoloLens and seeing holograms in front of you that you can manipulate and interact with.
But augmented reality isn't all fun and games. Actually, Microsoft HoloLens is focused on enterprise or business applications, not gaming or entertainment.
Now, you can put an augmented reality headset on that person across the globe that you're trying to help, and you can see what they're seeing. Say that person is repairing a very complicated piece of machinery, and you're the expert, but you're half a world away. Well, they put on this headset and look at it, and you look at your computer screen, you talk to them, you see them, you can walk them through the process of fixing this complicated machinery as if you were standing right there over their shoulder, pointing and telling them, there's the potentiometer to tweak 30 degrees to the right.
I like it. Preventative maintenance as a superpower.
Yeah.
Quick recap. On one end of our reality continuum, we have virtual reality. And on the other end, we have the physical world. As we just heard, augmented reality sits in the middle because it augments the real world with some digital elements. Now, mixed reality is like augmented reality turned up to 11.
Anytime you're doing a little bit of bringing a little of the digital world in the real world or a little bit of the real world in the digital world, you're mixing realities.
Right. In mixed reality, the digital objects can interact with the real world. Let me say that again. In mixed reality, the computer-generated objects can interact with the real physical world. As in, a digital ball can bounce off of your IKEA table. A 3D gremlin can open your fridge and tell you need more soy milk.
One thing I think it's burning in our heads is, how does this work? It feels like you're sort of fooling the brain into thinking that what we're seeing is real. How are we actually getting this into our eyesight?
Fooling or tricking is exactly the right word. I mean, if you think about it, first of all, we can have a discussion about objective reality and whether that exists. There's a degree of mind expansion that's possible with mixing realities. You can see things that aren't physically there and do meaningful things with that. The underlying idea is really what's magic for us. And the way that it works is exactly right. It's by tricking. There are a couple of things that need to be true for these devices to be able to do that tricking, though, to convince you that there's something there that really isn't there. And it begins with, again, creating devices that can perceive their environments.
So the HoloLens essentially is this headset that you have a computer on your head, basically, and there's a heads-down display, almost like a kind of like goggles in front of you, and you're talking about that piece of glass in front.
Exactly. And in that piece of glass in front of you are these waveguides that we have developed, and the waveguides then are able to project these holographic images literally into the back of your retina. That is kind of the movie screen where they're seen. The images then appear to be, in space, real digital objects in front of you.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I like the movie screen concept you said. So it's actually not showing on the display. It's that the display is essentially projecting it into your eye.
Yeah, that's kind of the right way to think about it, is that the screen is literally your retina.
So XR, or extended reality, in the most interesting and enchanting way possible, is like wearing a theme park on your face.
Oh, hey there. May I ask who's calling?
My name is Ted Schilowitz. I'm the futurist in residence at Paramount Pictures.
A futurist. That will soon be my title as well. What is a futurist?
The more you can get ahead of the next big change, the next big revolution, the better positioned you will be to take advantage of it. And that's essentially what my day-to-day job is.
Right. You get to talk about VR, AR, and MR and explain on podcasts how we got to XR.
Right. So if we look at this sort of group of the R's, right? Virtual reality, mixed reality, and augmented reality, there's kind of a blanket that we in our business and the people I sort of interface with on a regular basis put a top level on that we like to call XR, extended reality.
Precisely. Extended reality, or XR, is the catch-all term for the continuum of all of our newfound blended real and virtual realities. I don't know about you, but when I hear about all of these R's, my mind typically goes to entertainment. I understand the potential business applications of all of this tech, but how do we make them fun? What's the future of TV, of film, of concerts?
Virtual reality has been around for many, many, many years, actually, and has been the bastion of things like theme park simulation experiences and so forth and so on, where we're taking very exotic ride vehicles and screens and kind of linking them together into an experience where your body and your brain and your eyeballs are moving through a screen experience. We're now able to take those screens because of computer power and screen advancements and essentially wear them. So I've often used this term, we're able to actually wear a theme park on our face now and take it with us wherever we want to go.
I love that analogy. Virtual reality is like wearing a theme park on your face.
When we talk about XR broadly, we define that as extended reality, which is sort of what we're doing today with our computer devices that we hold in our hands or prop on our laps, right? We have this little sort of magic window to the world. We still see the outside world, but we can bring digital things into our world, right? Whether that's videos with studio content or YouTube or any sort of media enterprise. Whether that's newfangled ways to absorb media like TikTok, whether that's productivity applications and so forth and so on. There's a visual sort of little box that we carry with us.
Exactly. In essence, what Ted is saying is that we are all already living in a world of extended reality. Every time you look at your phone, you have this little rectangular window into the digital world. So it's sort of making your existing world part of the extended reality continuum.
Then you extrapolate that to imagine all those things we do now, but bringing it into the world that we exist as if it was really there. So it actually knows where that object should be as if it was real. It knows how to interact with you as a person as if that object was real. So we're starting to explore new forms of entertainment because of the technology that allows us to place digital assets into the real world.
Right. It feels as if our world right now is at this tipping point. We're close to moving on from an age of handheld or holdable technology to an age of wearable technology, both for entertainment and for productivity. A great example of tech achieving this in the past is what we've accomplished on the audio side. We started with these big speakers and boom boxes. Eventually, we figured out headphones and stereo sound, meaning we could decide what sound came to your right ear and what sound came to your left ear. We even sorted out spatial audio, so I can sound super far away or really up close and intimate.
And then we were able to connect our mobile compute system that sits in our pocket with the right kind of headphones that are effectively stylized enough that they are acceptable broadly, right? And if you think about how many generations of like wearing the wrong goofy things on your head that people would sort of chuckle and go, why is that guy wearing that? To the age where we sit now with things like the Apple AirPods and how ubiquitous they are and what a large business that has become for Apple.
Augmenting your reality with audio is now super common. Nowadays, no one looks at you funny because you have AirPods in all the time. It's basically expected. And if you think about it, you listening to this podcast means you are using technology to alter your current reality. So right now, you and me, we're actually hanging out in a form of extended reality. So yes, those virtual and mixed reality headsets may look a bit crazy today, but think of them as early versions of headphones. We're just not at that AirPod moment yet.
Now technology is getting sophisticated enough, nimble enough, and powerful enough that we're going to do the same metaphor we did with our ears with our eyes. And then you're going to have these things that you're going to wear instead of hold, instead of keep in your pocket all day long, because your visual system is up on your face. It's not in your pocket. We will work on things like contact lenses, which there are a number of startups already figuring this out. We'll work on implants. And we will start to believe that things in front of our eyes at full scale, at full human scale or animal scale or building scale or whatever it is, are actually really happening in front of us. The next wave is when the screen isn't the screen that we've always known for many, many years, that the screen technology itself disappears, that we're believing that digital things in our world are actually really in our world.
Man, I love that. The invisible screen. Digital fully meshing with reality. It's all becoming one. If we go with Ted on this journey, we can imagine a day where we put ourselves in the right mindsets to believe these entertainment experiences are truly happening all around us. Imagine experiencing a zombie movie in mixed reality, where it feels like zombies are actually in your house, sitting next to you. They might scare you a little bit, but maybe they'd clean up the living room, or cook you dinner, or walk the dog. I don't know, it could be cool. Anyways.
And we're still arguably in the primordial ooze of all this. We're still scratching around on getting the devices right enough that they will become mass market, finding their real use cases and value points, of which is across the board, both industrial, professional, and consumer, both entertainment and productivity use cases.
Yes, Ted, keep going. I got nothing.
And at some point, it's going to get so good that we will reflect back on the day and go, remember when entertainment was like this? And we kind of believed, but we didn't really believe. Now we're in a world and an age of entertainment and everything else that we can use with these sort of XR sort of devices, where we can believe more than we don't believe. And that's a real dynamic change in the world that we exist in and live in globally.
Okay, this is all pretty futuristic already. But what about in the next 30, 40, 50 years? How does this technology change our lives?
If we go and reflect backward to learn forward, we understand that entertainment in some way, shape, or form is always some sort of trickery, some sort of illusion, some sort of thing we broadly would term as magic, right? We are getting better and better and better at the technology magic. So as we start to apply everything we've learned about how we build computers, how we advance screen technology, and how we advance the ways we can entertain and enchant people, we are going to build better illusions, more believable illusions, more powerful magic. So for the first real time from a mass market, mass consumption world, we are starting to look at the technology that turns the screen that we've known and everyone from generation past has known as the normalcy of a screen into something different. A screen that we actually wear on our face, that tracks with our eyes and our body, so the pixels move when we move. Where we look, it knows what we're looking at, and we can build a digital reality out of that. So that's kind of the baseline, right? And if you kind of take a step back and think about how many days, times, how many hours a day you're looking at some sort of screen with a border. The smartphone started that revolution. We have the screen with us all the time in our pocket, and we hold it up all the time. So one of the things I like to look at and think about is because of how valuable the mobility of that screen has been, we've essentially created a pinch point. So our screens have gotten larger and larger and larger in various places where we can put them, and thinner, right, and higher resolution. But the most used screen is the one that is the biggest possible screen we can possibly fit into our pocket, comfortably, and in many cases uncomfortably. Like the screens now on the smartphones are so big that it actually doesn't even fit in your pocket. They're just pushing the boundaries, right? So you kind of look at like an hourglass. Like here's the screens of every form and formulation, giant, and then we've shrunk them down into something we can put in our pocket. That's the pinch point of the hourglass. We're getting ready to emerge out of the other side of that hourglass into a new world where we can get massive screen sizes, trackable screens, screens that create a new form of reality, but are not bounded by the physics of a physical bordered screen we have to hold or mount on a wall somewhere. We can wear it, and we can have the belief structure that this is any size, shape, or formulation that we want, including transparent so that we can bring objects into the real world that feel real and kind of connect in the real world as real physical objects. We can create gigantic immersive universes that don't feel like they have a beginning or an end, just like reality, which is why we like to call it virtual reality.
Whoa, stay with me. Ted is suggesting we are at this transcendent moment, empowered by the intelligence, mobility, and wearability of our technology. His hourglass analogy is brilliant. In the past, we took movie screen type entertainment and tried to squeeze it into our tiny little phone screens, like going through the thinnest part of an hourglass. Now we're getting outside the other side of the hourglass. And the twist on that analogy is that this side of the hourglass doesn't actually have a frame. There's no border around it like a phone screen or like a movie screen. There's no border at all. Instead, the canvas is everything in your eyesight. Not only that, but the technology now knows where you're looking and how you're moving. So it can design experiences based on that intelligence. What you used to call the screen is now just reality. And not only does this change what we see and what we hear, but this technology also starts to bend our perception of space and of time.
Not only am I no longer a slave to space and its constraints on where I can have a meaningful impact, I can add value halfway around the world because of this technology now. I've also solved the conundrum of time and enabled myself to go 50,000 years in the future and have that conversation with my distant offspring.
I'm still stuck on conundrum of time. That's a great way to say death.
It's just maybe it's a euphemism, yeah.
Is this technology really going to disrupt our conception of what's real and what reality is and what life is, given that the digital has bled over and potentially overtakes in the case of posthumous living? How is that going to have an effect on us kind of more culturally, psychologically, socially?
It gets back to that question of objective reality, though, too, is like what is reality? And what we generally accept of it as today is not necessarily what it really is. But certainly when you start to combine digital things that are comprised entirely of bits, then yeah, you start to get in all kinds of possibilities.
I love this stuff. Sometimes people talk about virtual and augmented reality as a novelty, as a cute tech trick, but I don't see it that way. I actually see VR, AR, MR, the whole extended reality movement as reinventing our understanding of presence, of consciousness, of reality. The physical reality as we know it, it's not going to have this monopoly on our day-to-day lives. And I'm not suggesting that we're going to live entirely in virtual realities, no. But what I am suggesting is that the lines have already blurred to this point where maybe they'll just disappear. And I think this all really started to happen with your phones, with those little supercomputers in your pockets. Now pair that with these always-in headphones like AirPods, and pretty soon we're going to add sci-fi contacts to our eyes. At that point, we'll no longer talk about the two ends of the reality continuum, physical and virtual. this blended digital, virtual, physical world, it's just all going to be seen as normal. At the beginning of the episode, I asked, how do we know what reality is? What is the real reality? What I'm suggesting is that pretty soon, we just won't. Today's episode was written and hosted by me, Mahan Zanuzzi, produced by Karine Javier and Lee Schneider, exec produced by Steph Wolf. Music by Ura. Thank you to our wonderful guests, Greg Sullivan and Ted Schilowitz. You can find more Same Same on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your ear candy. Thanks for listening. Spread love.
This episode was brought to you in part by BCG Digital Ventures. BCG DV builds revolutionary new businesses with the world's most influential corporations. Learn more at bcgdv.com.
So what do you think about is augmented reality like hallucinating on mushrooms?
It certainly can be. I think I would have if you Alex Kipman gave a TED talk where he had a bunch of this kind of fanciful holographic mushroom laden display. I don't know if that was coincidental or not. Somebody actually pointed out and got into an argument with me that, well, you actually need atoms to represent bits, and so you can't have just bits without atoms, and
everything is mixed reality.
Everything is mixed reality. Even reality is mixed reality.
This will be how we close the episode.